I am live. Well, happy Sunday, everybody. How's everybody today? Let me just get the old iPad up with the chat. Hope everybody's having a good weekend. Um, my microphones didn't charge, so I'm using my earbuds. I hope everybody's going to be able to hear me. I've never done it with these on before, so just be patient. All right, 1 second. Back online. Let's do the thing. Nope. All right. Sorry, folks. I was hanging out in Aries. I didn't realize the time. All right, so I switch that to all comments, all messages. Beautiful. Well, it looks like we have a pretty good crowd so far. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Let's see who's here. We've got Marco Yee in the house, Ground Fog, Mr. Mouse, channel member, Robert Jones, channel member, Paul Mills. Welcome in. Angelo, channel member, James McCann, channel member, Staff Sergeant Maximus, welcome in. And you are a channel member. How's everybody? Brown Sugar, channel member. Let's see who else is here. Bill York, channel member. My pal, my buddy. Roger Baker, channel member. Welcome in, welcome in. Joe Kasperick, how are you, buddy? Joe Kasperick, great friend of the channel. People the We, channel member. Welcome in. Let's see, I think I've got every. Oh, David Gadici, what's up? Welcome in, my friend. Gonzo Wick, channel member. Hello there. So, I am excited. I unfortunately didn't get any new knives this week. No, that's not true. Hold on. I got one knife this week. But hang out, hang tight. We'll grab it. You guys are gonna laugh at this. Oh, oh, oh. Turn the volume off there. All right. All right. I'm back. I'm back. I'm back. Sorry about that. I forgot. All right. So let's see. Anybody else come in? All right, looks like everybody's still here. So the only knife I really got in this week was this little guy, which is a keychain knife that I won on Whatnot. It is a kind of cool little Damascus blade, um, fixed blade knife, keychain knife, kind of cool. Let's see if I can put that up behind. It's literally a two-finger knife, but it's actually got a nice little Damascus, and it's a real Damascus, which is kind of cool. Um, two fingers only, but kind of cool to throw it on a keychain. You know, I'm going to switch out that part of the keychain and actually put a lanyard so I feel a little bit more secure. Although I can put that around my finger and it locks it in place. I might actually just leave that now that I'm looking at it. But kind of cool little thing, you know. Throw it on, like I said, throw it on a keychain or whatever. You know, oh, it is a baby. It's a real baby. Something else that I didn't necessarily get in, but I finally opened it after, I don't know, having it for several weeks. Um, yeah, and that is this Sugar House Syndicate. This is the Flying Goddess. The Flying Goddess. So this is a lockback, nail nick, really gorgeous knife. Finch is the company uh, behind the Sugar House Syndicate. Sugar House Syndicate is their lockback blades, and Wheat State is their slip joint. And then, of course, their modern are under the Finch name. But what a great knife. 14C28N blade steel. Love the blade shape on that. You got this clip point. It's a nice size, too. You know, if you're a guy who likes to carry a buck, you know, a buck 110 or a buck 112, this is a nice alternative. It's around the same price point, it's $95, but and you can get this in obviously in this pattern here with the red and white stripes. But they also have it in like a blue jig and a yellow stag, I believe, like a yellow dyed stag. Off the top of my head, that's what I'm remembering. I have to look at the website, but it really feels really nice in the hand, and it's got that solid, unbelievably solid lockup because of that lock back. And the fit and finish is so great. You got those pins there. You can't feel the pins at all. Such a great one. Fred the Lug, welcome in, my friend. How are you, buddy? Appreciate you stopping in, Fred. Always appreciate you being here, buddy. I hope you're doing well. So, like I said, I was carrying that around today, and I did a short that'll be out probably tomorrow on this one. Then I was also carrying this today, which is not a new knife, but it's a knife that I put down somewhere literally about a year ago, and I hadn't been able to find it, and it just found it, and that is my Cold Steel mini tack. That is the mini tack Bowie. Love this knife. Jimping on this is great. Love that Bowie shape and that handle, even though it's only a three-finger grip. It's actually really for me 2.5. No, it's three fingers. It just locks in there because of the shape right there, and you can hard use this. And you just put on a little lanyard like that, and you get a nice full four-finger grip. Really cool knife. The only problem with it is the sheath that it comes with. Let me get the sheath off here. It's a little tricky. This is the way I have it on my belt. Um, the sheath on this one's tricky because the holes. Wuben Ninja channel member, welcome in, my friend. Illuminati gifting 10 memberships? Holy cow! Thank you, Blue. I will give a lightsaber salute. So let's see who got gifted the memberships. We've got Fred the Lug with a membership. Joe Kasprick with a membership. Paul Mills with a membership. Brian Blades, USMC with a membership. Deuces Wild with a membership. I'm Not Lost, I'm Exploring with a membership. Ken Faulkner with a membership. J. Rotten Devil with a membership. KO6 NPS Paul with a membership. And lastly, Deadhead 021975. Thank you so much, Blue. I appreciate that. We got a whole bunch of new members. That's awesome. Let's see. SC Knife Monkey. Not sure if I said hello to you or not, but welcome in. All right. Neil McKenzie, channel member, welcome in. Let's see, did I miss anything? Dawn and Chris Lowry, welcome in. Welcome in. Glad you're here. So let me, again, try and get this sheath off of my belt. The only problem with this sheath is that there aren't a lot of great options for clips. That's a definite solid 10 pack, 100%. All right, there we go. So when you get this, they supply this with a chain to use as a neck knife. I personally think that's a little big for a neck knife, so I wanted to put it on a belt clip. And none of the belt clips fit because these use these proprietary small holes that Cold Steel uses. So what I did was I got the Cold Steel small clip, and what it is with that is that these screws and the receiver for the screw are a smaller diameter. This clip works really well, but um, it's hard to get off your belt once you put it on. Very easy to slide it on. And actually, because this is so tight, if you turned it this way, it would make it a good pocket dropper. The problem is with this as a pocket dropper, because even if you extend, say, the clip up to here, you're still going to have a lot sticking out of your pocket, so it doesn't conceal it very well. But as far as a scout position knife, I love this thing, you know. And it's an old school blade steel. It's a 420. But what Cold Steel does with their 420 blade steels, it works fine. You know, it's not a super steel, obviously. It's an old steel. And that brings me to something that we were talking about today. I was at JT's in Port Jervis, New York. And if you don't know JT's, he's an Army Navy store. They've been there. God, I think it's over 40 years or so. And they sell knives, and he's got a great selection of knives. He does more with the American companies, not a lot of the um, yeah, exactly. Yeah, JT's been there forever. He doesn't do as much with like Civivi or company Kaiser or something like that. But he's got all, Spyderco, Benchmade, Microtech, all the American companies. He's got them. He's got them all, and all the bigger brands. Plus, he deals with a lot of used knives too. He trades and whatnot. And I was in there talking to him today, um, and there was another knife collector who I just met today. He was a really nice guy, and we got to talking. One, we were talking about Magnamax, Lion Not Sheep channel member. Hello there, Michael Miller. Welcome in. So we were talking about Magnamax compared to Magnacut, but then we got off into the conversation of how important are blade steels. Um, Now, mind you, the owner of JT's has been selling knives longer than some people have been alive. Okay, and he was talking about how the industry switched. He was talking about how just going back, even just say 15 years ago, he was talking about 440C was the steel, D2 was the steel, you know, and he was like, OS 8 was coming around after that, and that was the next super steel. Nothing like we had today. And he was saying, he goes, let's be honest about this. He goes, the only people who care about the steel types are the knife collectors. And he was talking about that. Let's see. MK Ultra 42 channel member, hello there. Welcome in. Did I miss somebody else? I don't think I did. If I did, sorry. Um, but we'll catch you on the next way around. But we were talking about this, and he was talking about the blade steel. He was like, he goes, and he said the same thing that basically Casey said, and almost like he doesn't know, he doesn't actually know who Casey is. So I know he didn't get it from Casey, but he was saying like 80% of the people who buy knives from him don't have any idea what steels they are because they don't care. They're buying them as users. They're not buying them as collectors. And I was like, that's the same thing I've been saying. Now, obviously, I'm a collector as well as a user, so I do care about blade steels, but I'm not a blade steel snob, you know. And he just Nate, hello there. How you doing, buddy? Oh, I'm glad you stopped in. Appreciate that. But we were also talking about hardness ratings. I mean, this is something I mentioned on the channel, and I know some people are like, well, listen, until really about 10 years ago, for the people who haven't been around the knife game that long, about 15 to 10 years ago, you couldn't even find a hardness rating on a knife listed anywhere because nobody cared. It was all about blade geometry, locking systems. This is a whole new wave of um, worrying about blade steels and worrying about hardness levels. Now, does that mean they're not important? They are absolutely important. Yes, exactly, people to wait. And that's something that's really important, you know. Um, if you're out in the field, and I'm talking about legitimately out in the field, and I'm talking about like hiking, or I should say camping, bushcrafting, where you're going to use hard use a knife, okay? Having a knife you can touch up in the field is so much more important than having a knife that's going to hold an edge, because usually knives that hold edges well have a tendency to be not as tough and be more brittle. I was watching Javon last week, and they got into a conversation, and um, Creeley from Creeley Blaze, he's usually on during the week, late night, and he was talking about Rex 21, and he had mentioned about how Rex 21 is such an overblown steel because he said no matter what you do, as soon as you start to hard use it, it shifts. Yet in the community, we've gone gaga over Rex 21. I've heard people push it to the moon, but he was saying from his experience, every Rex 21 he's ever come across that gets hard use chips. Now, I don't know. I don't have enough experience. I've only ever had one knife in Rex 21, and I was never really hard using it, you know. Um, but it's just interesting, you know. Dwayne Letterman, channel member. Oh, no, not a channel member, but welcome in, friend of the channel, Dwayne Letterman. So, with that said, you guys know I always wear um, my Wazoo Viking Spark. So this didn't actually start out as the Viking Spark. This just started out as the whetstone, and then I added the spark portion to it. Well, I'll tell you how good a company Wazoo is. I The first one of these I had cracked. I sent them a picture. They sent me a replacement. No problems asked. That was 2 years ago. Well, just the other day, the leather strap on it, the leather necklace on it broke. And I was like, well, it's been 2 years and they already replaced it once. Are they going to do anything? So just for shits and giggles, I contacted them, sent them a picture of the broken leather necklace. And they reached out, and I just wanted them to send me a new necklace. Instead, they sent me a whole brand new one in the box. So I was like, I like the new one. It's cool. I was like, but there's nothing really wrong with this one other than the leather, the leather necklace broke. So I took it and put it on a paracord necklace. And I put it on with the real quick. So I put it on a paracord, on a camouflage paracord with the breakaway connector on top. So that way, if somebody does pull my neck or try to choke me with it, it'll break away. So so now I have a brand new one here in the box. I'm gonna hold on to it because I have broken these twice now. But the fact that they replaced it a second time without really asking any questions, I sent it to them, and like I said, all they asked was for a picture. So I sent the picture of the broken necklace, and all I wanted was a new necklace. I didn't want the whole new unit, but they sent me one, so I've got that sitting here. But I can tell you, a quality company. That's twice now they replaced the broken product, and they didn't really ask any questions. So you can't. And the first time when they did it was like 2 years. Like I said, 2 years ago, and they answered me within just a few minutes. This year it took them like 2 days to get back to me, but they're a much bigger company now than they ever were, and they're still running with just a small staff. So I get it, but the fact of the matter is they sent me a new one. So you just can't beat customer service. So if you are looking for any of their products, I can vouch for Wazoo. They make good products and they stand behind them. So, be shady. What's up, my friend? So that's really all I have as far as you know knives. Talking about knives. Like I said, it was just an interesting conversation I got into with over at JT's. And like I said, if you're ever in the Port Jervis in the Hudson Valley area, stop into his shop because it's a little Army Navy store, but he's got everything. And he's a hell of a nice guy too. Stephen Parks, channel member, hello there, welcome in. Glad you're here. So I appreciate everybody who's been hitting the thumbs up. We've got 33 people and 28 thumbs up. That's not bad. That's not bad. That means some people either didn't hit it or maybe left. Now we got 29, so very cool. Appreciate that. So just to give you guys kind of a life update, I'm still not working. I have been putting in applications, through Indeed, through LinkedIn and that stuff. I got some stuff maybe lined up. I don't know, not necessarily lined up, but I've got applications out there. We'll see what happens. Um, you know, but right now we're in there. We're surviving. It's a little tight. I did just sell a motorcycle on Saturday. Um, that was going to get sold whether or not I was unemployed or not. Oh yeah, I'm not. People the we it's a little tough right now, but out there. But I'll grab something. It'll happen. It's just a matter too of finding the right position. I'm 56, so I'm really like 10 years, 11 years away from retirement. So I don't want to just take a job for the sake of taking jobs because I have a really good track record of staying with companies that I like. Um, in fact, the last three companies I worked for, I was there 10 years for each of them. So I'm hoping whatever company I get hired with hopefully takes me to the finish line, you know. So I don't want to just settle. But I figured I'd give you guys an update. Like I said, I did sell a motorcycle over the weekend. Um, it was an older motorcycle, so I didn't get a lot for it, but it had to go. It was being stored at a friend's house, and she's selling her house. And in the new house, there isn't a garage to keep it in. So I wound up having to sell it, but I had to sell it anyway. Like I said, it was just to the point. I don't even really ride that one anymore. It sat the last 2 years in storage. So it was time. It was really weird though, like watching it drive away on the back of someone's trailer. I was like, oh wait, I'm not going to see Bella anymore. So, and yes, I name my motorcycles. So my Honda is named Akari. It's because it's red, and Akari actually means red in Japanese. You know, I would say it was tough, but I was ready for it. You know what I mean? It was time. It was time to let it go. It's like the same thing with all the guitars I sold over the last year. It was time. You know, you just kind of know. Well, I did have a lot of good rides on that one, including during COVID. I rode that one on camping trips during COVID, where I pack up the bike and go camping, be by myself in the woods. So you know, but I've got my other bike, and we're good to go. And to be perfectly honest, I haven't ridden my other bike this year at all yet. So I need to get out there. I need to get out there so I can whatchamacallit. This week I gotta pull the battery out and charge it and get the bike going. It was winterized, so it should be all ready. Just have to do a quick fill up because when I winterize it, I only left a little gas in it. Um, I'll fill it with a fresh tank of gas. Charge the battery, and we should be ready to go. So I'm looking forward to that. But anybody get anything new this week? Just curious. Oh, that sucks. Having sick animals is the worst because they're sick, but they can't tell you what's wrong. You know, so you got the T-tail too. Nice, very nice. By the way, if anybody missed my live stream from earlier this week, um, go back and watch it. That was a lot of fun because I actually pulled out two bins of fixed blade knives, and I think I showed off all but three of my fixed blade knives. And it was almost, I don't know, I didn't even count them, but there had to be anywhere between about 70 knives in that. Um, so if you want to check out all the knives I have in my, all the fixed blade knives I have, I actually showed off every single one of them during the live stream on Tuesday. That was Tuesday and Monday when I did the morning. Is it over? No, Dale Lane, channel member. It's not over. You've got plenty of time. Glad you're here. older phase. Yeah, one of the, speaking of which, BCA, one of the knives I carry today is an older knife of mine. Not it's too old, but it's a NAS. Good old NAS Lander 1 in D2. This is such a great knife. I love everything. Not sure, I can't say. I love 99% of what NAS has done. I did not get the Capcom. I don't know. I just feel that knife at 225 bucks is a little overpriced, in my opinion. You know, but yeah, I was carrying this, so there'll be a video on this one. I love this little NAS lens, and this was one of the blends. I don't know if you can see the happy face on it. They mark all their blend knives with a happy face. So if you could ever pick up their blends, they're phenomenal. I can't even tell why it's a blend, to be honest. Like, I looked at everything on this, and I cannot for the life of me figure out why this was a blend. But their blends had become really popular because they put that blacked out, eye crossed out smiley face. So I have like three of them, but you can get them dirt cheap. What I should do is really plug in this set of microphones so I can charge them. I don't know what happened there, but yeah, exactly. This is definitely that this is definitely a user. This is not a show knife. It's a D2 lander. These even new. These are only like 42.99 something like that. You know, but Replicant EDC, what's up? Glad you're here. But just a great knife. Like I said, I love all the NAF stuff. You know, another knife I was carrying is this guy, and that is the original Devo Mash. I really like this knife. It's the only Devo I have, but I like it. I like it a lot. You know, at some point when I'm working again, there'll be another Devo in my future. I can tell you that. Really like what they do. But sounds really good too. Doesn't have the same sound as the Mini Malice, and this thing is great. This thing just has the best sound, has the ting that like no other knife I have. Oh, I don't know if you heard that. Hopefully you can hear that, but that ting is kind of has that ringing to it. So cool. Anybody else get anything new? The whole time. Oh, absolutely. Be Shady, you are 100% right. Anybody who stops in, even if it's just for a few minutes, throws a thumbs up, says hello, it all helps. Like you're here to talk to somebody else. All right, I'll check it out, Bill. I will 100% check that out. Yeah, that Devo small boy looks really good. That head, but like it's weird because I never really I kept hearing about Devo knives, never got around to getting any because honestly, I didn't always like Lefty's not one of the channels I always watch. Once in a while I go there, but I don't always go there. And it's not because I don't like Lefty. I like him a lot. Kevin's an awesome dude. I just forget because he's on a Thursday, and for some reason, even the other day, I was like, it was like almost midnight, and I went out to YouTube. I was like, oh crap! I was like, Kevin's on. I was like, I didn't realize. I forgot all about it. So it's all good though. But yeah, pretty cool. Pretty cool stuff. Um, Samo Zen, hello there. Today was the Django and the Django XL before they started releasing questionable designs. Hmm. Yeah, people the Wii, I saw that the PM2 Tanto. I don't know. People seem to be going gaga over it, and I just like, yeah, you know. Um, I think everybody's going gaga over because it's really new. But I mean, it's really just a para. It's just a paramilitary two with a different blade shape. I didn't see the steel on it though. What's the steel on it? Yeah, I don't think I'll bite on that either. You know, not right now, obviously, but even in the future, I might hold off on that. M4. Okay, so M4 is a really good steel though. You know, but honestly, I would rather have a PM2 Salt in Magna Cut. But that's just me. You know, I'm a Magna Cut fanboy. M4 is a damn good steel. You got the new Uranus and can't put it down. Hover, very cool. Why not sheep? That's always, it's one of those things. If you're ever struggling, you could always reach out to people in the community. We're all here to help. You know. Now, on a different note, just going back to knives for a second. Um, you guys are making me laugh here in the chat. But yeah, I'd rather have a PM2 salt in Magna Cut. I don't know, and even like people going crazy about the Manix um, in Magna Max, and I don't know. I To me, what you gain in Magna Max but lose over Magna Cut isn't worth it. Yeah, you're going to get better edge retention. You're going to lose toughness, and I want the balance. I don't want to lose any toughness. In fact, so I was talking about this on the Tuesday morning show, and some people, um, what you call it, more obviously weren't there. I went down a rabbit hole on whatever night it was. I even did that Monday or Tuesday. I don't remember what day I did the morning show, but I went down a rabbit hole of almost 12 hours just doing research on steels and pulling up all their information cards. And when you start to actually research the steels and bring up their information cards, meaning their corrosion resistance ratings, their edge retention ratings, their what you call it? I'm losing my train of thought. Toughness, edge retention, corrosion resistance, and then ease of sharpening. Those are the four ratings that you get. And if you add up the points, add up all four, and get a total number, you would be surprised where the steels finish. Some of the steels that are super steels, supposed super steels, excel in one area but drop off in other areas so that some of the lesser perceived lesser steels actually rank higher because they're more well-rounded. Well, for me, the number one thing I want is I want toughness, corrosion resistance. I'm not worried about edge retention. I can sharpen a knife, you know, and you know, I would just rather have the well-rounded steel. You know, I just it's I don't know. Like I said, So you've got edge retention, ease of sharpening, toughness, corrosion resistance. All of them for me, edge retention's the least important of the four. Now, some people aren't going to be that way. Some people are going to say, I'd rather have the edge retention. And I get it. If you're a guy who's out there and you're doing slicing of cardboard and stuff like that, that's fine because you don't need the toughness. You need that edge retention, and you want to hold that edge while you're slicing cardboard, while you're slicing rope, Amazon packages. For EDC, yeah, edge retention I think does rule. But if you're going to use it for hard use stuff, give me toughness all day long. Yeah, well, that's true. People of the week. I think Robert Willoughby, hello there. Welcome in. I think it's really important to be able to touch up a knife in the field, you know. Um, you know, and cutting, cutting, honestly speaking, is more a result of blade geometry than sharpness, believe it or not. You know, Magna Cut's not hard to sharpen, honestly. It takes longer, it takes some more work, but it can be done. It's not like it's impossible because people sharpen it, you know. But let's face it, for years people have used D2, but D2 doesn't have great edge retention. I don't care what people say. Look at the ratings on it. It's not a great edge retention steel. You know, it's not corrosion resistant. It's a tough steel. It's fairly tough. You know, but yeah, I don't think honestly, I don't think any steel is hard to sharpen. It's just whether it takes longer or not. You know, but appreciate I must have missed what's going on there. But if you ever need to talk, you know where I am. Just reach out. But just getting back to it, I don't know. I prefer knives that are balanced. You know, and like I said, when I do the video, I worked on that. Like I said, I went down a rabbit hole. That's what kept me up almost 24 hours. I couldn't turn my brain off. For people who know, when I did the live stream in the morning, it was because I was awake for 24 hours because I started researching steels. I started making up graphics, and I worked on it all night long. When I finally went to bed, my mind was just racing. I sat in bed for 2 hours without falling asleep. I kept thinking about steels. It was really bad. And I wound up getting back up, and I decided, you know what, I'm gonna do a live stream. And I did the morning live stream, and I stuff like after the live stream was over, we did that for like 90 minutes. Yeah, 90 minutes on that one. I wound up staying up like another 3 hours before I finally went to sleep. I only slept like 3 hours that after that. It took me like a day and a half to get back into a routine, but it's all good. But like I said, I went down that rabbit hole. You know, the other thing too is you have to be careful when you get the ratings, right? So if you go to like Knife Steel Nerds, Larry Thomas's website, you can get all your ratings right there. But all the ratings that you get, whether it's hey, toughness is an 8, and you know, ease of sharpening is a 5, blah 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 blah. That's all dependent on if it's all properly heat treated. You know, so that's taking into assumption when you get that card that gives you has the scale and it gives you goes in the four directions, and you have your edge retention. Then right below that on that chart is usually toughness. Then on the other side you have edge retention, toughness. Oh no, it's edge retention, corrosion resistance. Then it's toughness, and then they show it on the bottom, and that is going to be ease of sharpening. And if you notice, nothing's ever perfect. Like nothing is a 10 across the board. There's always 8 here, but those ratings are all on the assumption that the steel was properly heat treated. Don't heat treat it properly, and it drops off. And when I say heat treat it properly, I don't mean making it as hard as possible, because again, we know in this community that if you look at the on Knife Steel Nerds, or if you actually look at um, CPM's original rating call for hardness, they were calling for originally for MagnaCut between 58 and 60. Then they later changed it to 60 to 62. But so many people out there are saying, no, it does better at 63 to 64. Yes and no. Again, that'll give you better edge retention, but it's going to become more brittle. Just reality. You can't increase the one without decreasing somewhere else. So when you harden it, when you over harden it on, say, MagnaCut, you're going to increase the edge retention, but you're going to lose that on the toughness side. So just throwing that out there. How many people out there, on a different note, carry tactical pens at all? Anybody carry a tactical pen? Derek, for real, what's up, my buddy, channel member? How are you? So I'm just curious if people carry tactical pens. I like tactical pens. I have a number of them. I did that video on tactical pens. I still say this one by Atomic Bear is still one of the best ones out there because it doesn't necessarily look tactical. And there's a lot of options for it. They do make it, this one is the aluminum version, and they do make this in a titanium version. But, and then I have the other one from Atomic Bear, the Rebel. This one's a great one because this just looks like any office pen, right? But the problem I have with this one is when you go to write with it, right? You go to write with it, the cap doesn't stay. So I'm always afraid I'm going to lose the cap, which I pointed that out in the video. But this is a great one because this just looks like you can walk onto a plane with this because it doesn't look like a tactical pen. It's just a pen, you know. But and then there's this one. This is an inexpensive one made by Zebra. I like Zebra pens. This is an inexpensive tactical pen. These are like $13, you know, but good stuff. I mean, there are a lot of like the inexpensive tactical pens that you find on Amazon. They all work, you know, but some of them look very, very tactical. Like anybody sees it and they know what it is right away. Oh, I'm missing all kinds of drama, and I'm glad because I don't like getting involved in any of the drama. Yeah, the zebra pen is nice because it's very lightweight too, and it just feels really good. And it writes really well because it has that nice zebra, insert. But are people in the community fighting? We don't like that. At least I don't like it. Why is anybody threatening anybody? Guys, be nice to each other. This is 100% drama zone free. We're religion free, political free, drama free. We just like to hang out, talk knives, joke around, you know. So if you guys could just kind of not fight in the chat, it would be greatly appreciated. But this is a place for everybody to hang out. I don't care, you know, just everybody hang out, have fun. We'll talk knives. Thank you, folks. I appreciate that. So, and is there anybody out there who is has a channel and would like to drop their link? Feel free. You know, um, William Hornbustle. Hello there, my friend. How are you? So, like I said, anybody who has channels, drop your links. Um, I'm okay, Derek. Like I said, I'm still searching for a job at the moment, but I'm okay. You know, knock on wood, I'm healthy, and that's all we could really ask. You know, we had the other day. What day was that? Was it Thursday, Friday? No, Thursday. When we had the yellow skies here in New Jersey because of the wildfire stuff coming down from Canada. You know, good to see you too, Deadhead. Appreciate you being here. But we had that. The weather was it was hot. We had the yellow skies, and the air quality index was like at 156. And that's people who have questionable breathing or have breathing issues. Really bad for them. We had that, and some points they were talking about maybe going up to like 200. 200 is just unsafe for everybody. And we were, like I said, at like 156 when I checked. Yeah, it does. Yep. It's funny because there are quite a few pens that will accept the Fisher refills, which I like. J1 newbie in the house. Hello there. You know, and the one thing about Fisher space pens is they have a tendency to blotch, but they are going to write anywhere, and they're never going to fail. So, you know, and if anybody buys the Write in the Rain pens, those are made um the cartridges are actually made by Fisher Space for Write in the Rain. So that's kind of cool. And what's good about that is in a lot of cases, the Write in the Rain pens are a lot cheaper than the Fisher Space pens. I have the one that sits here. The mic did not charge, so I'm actually using earbuds tonight. So I'm hoping they make it through the show. But this is my Write in the Rain Monsoon wallet. It holds like 8 credit cards. It holds cash. I've got my Write in the Rain little notebook back here and holds the Write in the Rain pen here on the side. So this is a little Write in the Rain pen that you basically pull the cap, throw the cap on top, and it gives you a full length pen. And because it's a Write in the Rain, it's going to write anywhere. But that cartridge that's in there is actually made by Fisher Space Pens, and the actual pen itself is made by the pen body is made by Puco. So if you know who Puco pens are, they make the same pens but with the standard insert. When you get them from Write in the Rain, they have the Write in the Rain insert, which again is made by fine people at Fisher Space Pen. Now, Puco, they are manufactured in the USA. So and so is Fisher Space Pen. So that's nice. All the Write in the Rain products are USA made. You know, like this is just a regular Puco pen. You know, this one has a regular refill in it. Then I've got this one, which is a glow in the dark pen. This one did not come from Puco, but I'm assuming they manufactured it because it's the same format. And this one is like I said, it's glow in the dark. And I think this one came from County Comm. So, and I don't think I have a UV flashlight over here, do I? No. Or UV flashlights from the other room. Wait. Nope, I don't have a UV flash right here, but you have to trust me. This glows in the dark and it's pretty damn bright. Goes along with my whole glow in the dark setup. Yeah, and these aren't expensive either. I think these are like, I don't know, like $6 or so. You know, the I shouldn't say that. I had some collectible pens um, that are. I don't buy expensive pens. You know, this is like a $60 pen, but this was given to me by Atomic there for to review. Same thing, like this is a $29 pen. I don't spend a lot on pens. The only one I spent any amount of money on. Kelly's Mismatch. Hello there. Oh, that's fine. I appreciate you working, Kelly. Always appreciate you being here. This is the only pen I've spent any money on, and this is the Big Idea Design Mini Titanium pen. I like this because, well, I just like the way it looks. I'm going to be honest. And that is the leather sheath that they sell separately for it. So I got this through their Whatnot. They sell them in the store, but I gave them a lowball offer on the pen, and they accepted it. And then I gave them a lowball offer on the sheath, and they accepted it. So I literally like, I don't, I think these things. Don't quote me. I think these are like 30 or like $40 or so, and then these are like $29. I think together with when I lowball offered them, I think I paid like 17 for like each one. So the whole thing came out like $34. Otherwise, I would have never bought these pens. But I'm a person like my wife. My wife's always laughing because I always have a pen. Mick Ranger, Challenger, hello there, welcome in. I never go anywhere without a pen. You know, she always jokes because she's like, "Do you have all your accoutrements?" You know, always patting the pockets down to make sure I have everything. You know, I know you guys are the same way. I know it. No, it wasn't a bad price at all. Like I said, if you, oh yeah, I agree. I don't. Here's the thing, like I don't. I always have a pen, but I don't like to spend money on pens because I had a really nice pen a long time ago that was given to me, and it got stolen right off my desk. Not at my last job, but at a job before. And I always say after that, never getting an expensive pen. You know, I have an expensive pen and pencil set that I got for when I was at Lowe's. I worked there for 10 years, and I got a really nice pen and pencil set from them. And then I have a pen, an expensive pen that was given to me, but I don't really don't I don't use those. The expensive pen pencil set just sit in the box. You know, no, I don't, and that's because of a traumatic experience going to school for art. I had a professor, Professor Doris Hayes. She owned an advertising agency called Doris's Doors back in the 90s. I'm in college, and she was teaching technical drawing class, but she would not let us use rapidograph pens, um, which is what basically the standard in the industry is. And her answer was, no, you're going to use a fountain pen, and that's because a fountain pen won't die. So we were forced to use fountain pens. Now, and she could tell, she could just look at it and tell if you actually use the fountain pen or not on your assignments. Then after that, she made us use a pen and inkwell. And if you've ever had to use a pen and inkwell, we would do these technical drawings. And if you made one mistake, you'd have to start over again. And basically, like one of the drawings, you were actually drawing your own graph paper, right? And you had to connect all the lines, and they all had to be perfect. But because she forced us to use a pen and ink and not rapidograph pens, I can't tell you how many times I got like 60% through and just boom, screwed it up because I dabbed too much ink on the tip of the pen. So I I said never again. So I don't even like gel pens to be honest. Not because gel pens are bad. Gel pens write really well, but gel pens do not write on a write in the rain pad because of the waxed paper. So it has to be a ballpoint pen or a pencil. Which brings me back to my other point. I was I talked about this. If anybody watched my loadout video for my day pack, which about 100 people have now, the one of the things I carry besides carrying a pen is I carry a carpenter's pencil. I always have a carpenter's pencil in my backpack. And the reason why is because a carpenter's pencil, you just need a knife to sharpen it. It'll always write, you know. If you have your write in the rain pad, you could always use your pencil to write. So that's why I always have a carpenter's pencil because one, they're flat, so they don't take up any room in your bag. And what I like to do is, they're about yay long. I cut them in half so I can put them in different packs. So every time you get one, I don't know, you got them for like a quarter at Home Depot or Lowe's or whatever. And a lot of places, like I've been to a lot of like expos, like building expos, and everybody gives them out. So I got a ton of them, and I just cut them in half generally, and I'll put them in little packs. Because again, I don't have to worry about ink dying. I always have a knife on me, and I can always, you know, yeah, it could be my wife because she does so much stuff. Yes, exactly, Bill. They don't roll away. That is the other good point. Because my wife works in an office and she does a lot of writing, she has nice pens. That to her makes a real difference. Because but she does so much more writing by hand than I ever would. You know, but Kelly, I'm assuming your calluses come from just all the paracord tying, right? That's that what you're saying? I think I missed that. Oh, okay, gotcha. I just saw what you wrote about having the gloves. Oh, and speaking of Kelly, by the way, that's one of Kelly's little. I know it's meant to be a zipper pull, but it works perfect on this knife as a lanyard. This is one of the ones that Kelly sent me. So I always appreciate these, Kelly. I wind up using them all the time. All the ones you sent me have basically been used now, and the monkey fists have been almost all given away. But these come in so handy, Kelly. You don't know. Just to throw on something like that, so I get that extra finger grip. You're a lifesaver, Kelly. Kelly, what about a nice set of tactical gloves? Ah, gotcha. Yeah, Kelly's monkey fists are badass. You know, I have to be careful with them because they're illegal in my state. But you know, Kelly, what do you use to take knots out? Are you using like a marlin spike? Just curious about that because I do. Lately, I've been trying to tie my own lanyards, and I'm not good at it. I've got some that have come out really well, and others that like you look at them and go, "Yep, he's an amateur." But I'm getting better the more I do them. But I find when I have to take yeah, no, exactly. You know, All right, yeah, I keep saying I need a Marlin spike. Oh, that's a good idea, Bill. The thin Kevlar gloves, yeah. Yeah, James, Zebra makes a lot of good stuff. I like Zebra stuff. Apex Carry EDC, hello there. I saw you and Shay on late night the other day. I worked for a little bit, and then I had a bunch of stuff I had to do. So, but I didn't say hello, but I was working. I do that a lot lately, more and more because I usually find myself busy doing a lot of stuff lately. So I want not just sitting there on the phone like I'm lurking and watching, listening in. So if you don't know, look up Jason Hansen on YouTube. He's a former CIA agent, CIA or FBI, forget. No, CIA agent, and he whatchamacallit, he did a video of how to make a homemade self-defense tool that's actually legal in all 50 states. And really, it just basically is a little bit of cable wire with a set of nuts attached to it, screwed to the end. You know, um, and you can use it just like a monkey's fist, but it's not regulated. You know, not to get political or talk about pew pews, but here in New Jersey, a ruling came down just over the weekend that struck down a lot of New Jersey's laws against um, automatic pew pews, not automatic, semi-automatic pew pews, basically AR-15s. Um, they they declared Jersey's laws unconstitutional. So that was a win for A2 people or 2A people. Sorry. Oh, interesting question. So I've got a question, and I don't know the answer to this. I've never actually researched it, but it just was you driving. I was looking at a flag, American flag, and what we always say when we look at an American flag, you say, "What color? What are the colors of the flag?" And everybody always says red, white, and blue. Why do we say red, white, and blue instead of blue, white, red, or white, red, blue, or something like that? Because in my head, when you're reading, you read from left to right, top to bottom. So the first color you see if you're reading in a reading style, right? When you're looking at the flag, you see blue, white, red. So I've always wondered. Now, my wife was saying she believes it has to do with what the colors represent, which is why we say them red, white, and blue. And she was saying that the red stands for the blood of the soldiers who fought for our liberty or whatever. I don't remember how she broke it down, and that sounded like pretty credible theory, but I wasn't 100% sure. I was wondering if anybody knew why we always say red, white, and blue instead of the other way around. Is that is that why? Hmm, it's interesting. I'm gonna have to. That's another rabbit hole I'm gonna go down. So there's that. The one thing I do love. This is not again. This is not a political. It's just an observation. I have so many products where they throw USA, red, white, and blue on it, but it's made in China. Another one, red, white, and blue, made in China, although assembled in the USA because you can't import a full automatic knife. They're illegal to import to the country, which is why places like Cobra Tech, it'll say what you call it, assembled in USA. That's because the parts are coming from overseas. Now I said the same thing, but then I thought about it. It flows better. That's because that's how we know it. You know, white represents purity. Right. And Roger, that would make sense if you're doing it in that order. So that makes sense. And that's what Jen was saying too. So like I said, I never thought about it before. It's just a random thought because I often have random thoughts, that just pop in there. Speaking, I'm gonna tell you a funny story. When I was in I think I was 16. Yeah, I was 16 years old, and I got a job working in a Grand Union supermarket, working on a truck crew. And to save the person embarrassment, I won't say his last name, but we had a guy named Paul, and they gave him the nickname the Prince of Stupidity. And I didn't know the guy all that well. And I said to this other guy, Kenny, that worked there, I said, why do they call him the Prince of Stupidity? And he was like, work here a week and you're going to know why. So, hey, Nate, with the 9.99 super chat, you get a phaser salute. No, I don't. I don't. And yes, you will get lightsaber. Thank you. Appreciate that, hey, Nate. So, go back to the story. I used to work with this guy named Paul, and what you call it? He had the nickname the Prince of Stupidity. I said, ask this guy Kenny why. He's like, you'll know. So we had another guy. Real name was Anthony, but everybody called him Slick. Slick was this punk rock dude who had a mohawk, always had his leather vest, had his Freddy Krueger hat on all the time, and just he looked cool as anything with his punk rock look. And Paul comes up to me, the Prince of Stupidity, comes up to me and says, yeah, you know why they call him Slick? And I said, no, Paul, why do they call him Slick? He goes, because he's so slick. And I said, okay. It was like very informative. They would pull practical jokes on this guy, Paul, all the time. He was a metalhead, long hair, played drums, nice guy, but dumb as a stump. They told him one time, and as God is my witness, this guy was so stupid he will put himself in the hospital. In the supermarket, they used to have the deep fryers for making fried chicken. Paul walks up to this guy, Kenny, and says, if I put my hand in the deep fryer, will it hurt? Kenny jokingly said, no, go ahead, do it. Paul, being dumb as a stump, sticks his hand right in the oil, wound up in the hospital, burnt hand. Um, this was the kind of stupid that this person was. But I think the thing, random thought, he comes up to me one day and he goes, I've got a question for you. And I said, what's the question? He said, if we all wear sneakers and shoes that pretty much have rubber bottoms, he said, and they all wear down, where does the rubber go? I said, what made you think of that? He goes, dude, he goes, I was up all night thinking about that. He was like, I just need to know, where does all the rubber go? And I was like, I don't know. I was like, more importantly, that kept you awake all night? And he was like, yeah. He goes, it's bothering me. I need to know. I was like, okay, terrific. That was the kind of guy Paul was. They, I got him really good one time. I took his leather jacket, his motorcycle jacket, and I sprayed one arm full of shaving cream and then the other arm full of shaving cream. So that when Rick put his arms full, he got a arm full of shaving cream. We would pull jokes on him all the time, but it was just because he set himself up just because he was so dumb. Like I said, he had the nickname the Prince of Stupidity. But to this day, I'm always going to remember the guy. Like I said, he was genuinely a good guy. I mean, we had a bunch of fun guys we worked with. We were 16 years old, and just to give you an idea, we used to go there, and the way our supermarket was set up, there was the men's room, and then there was the women's room. The women's room had a big lounge with a couch in it. Well, what we would do on a Saturday night after our shift ended, the store was open 24 hours, but we worked the 7 to midnight shift. And actually, it was like 6 to midnight, whatever it was like 6 hour shift, whatever. Um, we would work that shift. At the end of the night, we'd grab fried chicken from the deli, and we would grab a case of beer and go down and sit in that lounge room, just sit there drinking all night, literally till the next morning. And we would leave before the day manager came in. Night manager, this guy Cliff, was like, he goes, I don't care what you guys do. He goes, don't break anything. He goes, don't get hurt. You know. Oh yeah, all that stuff would be called bullying. Are you kidding? 100%, 100%. And again, I don't want to get political, but a lot of crap that I see people complaining about as bullying to me was just a rite of passage as growing up when I was a kid. You know, I think in a lot of cases, a lot of what is considered bullying just made us stronger people. It made us not as sensitive. Now, mind you, I wasn't on the internet back then as a young kid. You know, so maybe it's different, and I can't relate to it. But all I know is the bullying that we went through when we were growing up to me was more of a rite of passage type of thing. You know, but you know, oh yeah, 100%, 100%. Yeah, it does in a lot of ways, Nate. 100% right. I'll tell you a story about high school. Senior year, like it was always big in my high school. To not my senior year, I shouldn't say that. I was a um, freshman, but I in my school it was very big to pick on the freshmen. The seniors would always pick on the freshmen. I got away with not getting picked on because my best friend's brother was a senior while the two of us were freshmen. So we were kind of told, they kind of told everybody, leave those two alone, their family, whatever. Right? Okay. Long story short, this big guy, I don't remember, Carl was his name. Guy was big. He was on the basketball team. He was like 6'7". He decides I'm gonna be cool this year. I'm a senior, but I'm not gonna pick on freshmen. Well, like a week in, this little kid, I'm talking about this kid could have been 5'2", bumps into Carl and tells him, get out of my way. Because apparently somebody got into this kid's head and said, if if somebody's pushing you around, go to the biggest guy. The whole jail thing, find the toughest guy, punch him in the face, and well, this kid must have been told that or whatever, but he had the balls to turn around to this guy Carl and say, "Get out of my way." So Carl was like, "What?" He's like, "You heard me. Get out of my way." Carl picks him up, like literally picks him up and says, "You are a lucky kid. I'm gonna put you down." Now, what we had was ID cards. When I was in high school, the ID cards were called jug cards. just like a drinking jug. They used to call them jugs, and I don't know why, but when you got detention or suspended, they would take your ID card and you would be given jug. I don't know. Again, I don't know what jug stood for, but so this guy Carl turned around to this little kid and says to him, "Listen, give me your ID card." He goes, "In this school, seniors have the right to give you detention. Give me your ID card." Stupid kid gives Carl his ID card. Carl takes his information off the ID card and says, "You'll get this back." Sends the kid off on his way. The next morning, Carl calls the school, gives the kid's name. I don't remember what the kid's name was. It's been years. Gives the kid's name and says, "I'm the parents of Joe Schmo. He's not going to be in today. He's sick. Um, he should be back tomorrow." Carl waits outside for this kid to walk up the steps of the stairs walk up the steps of the school. Grabs this kid, says, "Come on, you're coming down to the basement." Goes down to the basement. Now we had tall gym lockers, football lockers actually, in the basement. So you put all your football gear in there with football team training. He takes the kid, puts the kid in the locker room, tells the kid, "If you scream, I'm going to kill you." He said, "And I'll come back and check on you." So leaves the kid in there. School doesn't think anything of it because he called the school to tell them that the kid was going to be out, right? So Carl locks his kid in the locker. Throughout the day, Carl going to the kid and going, "You hungry?" And you know how the gym lockers they have the little vent holes that are flipped up like this. He was passing the kid little chocolate chip cookies. At the end of the day, he went back, told the kid, "If you ever tell anybody, I'm going to kill you." He goes, "Now, don't ever mess with a senior again," and let the kid out. Now, I think that's totally nuts, and that was really bullying and crazy. But that's the kind of stuff that happened in the 80s. So when people were younger, like that stuff happened. You know, it was kind of insane. But they locked that kid in the locker. I'll never forget it, man. But that's the type of bullying that took place, and I think it's a lot different than the bullying that goes on now. And I don't, I like I said, I can't, what you call it, relate to what kids go through now. You know, that's why I don't judge them. But I do think a lot of what we went through was a rite of passage, so to speak. You know, Jesus, 11:21. Wow, time's flying. You know, the platform that. Oh, 100%. There are lots of keyboard warriors out there. Good night, Bill. I'll check out that thing in a little bit. Actually, I'll check it out as soon as I'm done the live stream. 100%. There are a lot of people who get very belligerent behind the keyboard. They become tough guys behind the keyboard, tough girls behind the keyboard. But if you ever had them in front of you, they would never say half the stuff they say because they know they get punched in the mouth. You know, and even that's we've gotten to a point where when I was a kid, even into my early 20s, there were a lot of fist fights that happened. Fist fights don't happen like that anymore. One, because you can't just have a good one-on-one fist fight anymore because people bring everybody they know. We all see the videos online, or who's carrying a gun now, who's carrying a knife, whatever. Where when we were younger, I mean, hell, me and my best friend Randy, we must have had three or four really, I'm talking about real fist fights where we beat the crap out of each other. Bruises, bloody noses, that kind of thing. To this day, we're still great friends. That's what would happen then. Doesn't happen like that now. You know, I wouldn't want to fight anybody. First of all, now if you fight somebody, you hit somebody, an assault charge is a really real thing. You know. Oh, I know, 100%, Dale. You know. Oh yeah. Yep. that's exactly it. Like if me and my friend had a beef, we would just, hey, you know what? 8 o'clock. I'll meet you in front of somebody's house, and we would just beat the hell out of each other. It just happened. And literally like the next day we were friends again. And then my wife always says that's a guy thing, and it may be. I don't know, but that was something, you know, that actually made us tighter in the day. I think. 100%. Okay, yeah. But yeah, we would literally beat the hell out of each other. I don't think like as my circle of friends from when I was like 8 years old up to like say 18 years old, that 10-year period, there's not a friend in that group who didn't at one point or another fight each other. You know, but yeah, exactly. You get together and talk about the next day. Even now, my friend Randy, he lives up in Massachusetts now. I'll talk to him online. We'll still talk about, hey, remember that time when you got me really good, and you know, but that's true. Saturday morning, we had all the they called it here in New York City, New Jersey area. We had Channel Five, and Channel Five used to play Channel Five or Channel 11, one of the two channels. They used to call it the Saturday afternoon drive-in movie, and they would show two karate movies back to back every Saturday. I used to eat that stuff up like cake. That's when I wanted to be a karate man. And I had my throwing stars and all that good stuff. My nunchucks. Well, I think too, Roger, kids grow up a lot faster today than we did. And what I mean by that is because of the internet, they see a lot of stuff that kids shouldn't see. You know, um, I just think, and trust me, I'm an internet junkie, so it's like I'm on the internet all the time. But I think kids see a lot of stuff they shouldn't see when they're young, and I think it's not necessarily the best for them. Throwing stars are absolutely the most fun, man. I'd go into like we in Brooklyn, we had these little bodegas, and they'd be under a glass case, and you buy them. I remember them being like $2.50 or something like that. And then you had some with the 3 points, and you had some with the like 8 point stars, and some with the six, and all different designs. I had a belt buckle that had like a square, and in the middle of the throwing star, it would go over it and turn this way, and it would lock the star in, so the star was your belt buckle. I had one of those, and those were so much fun because I was like, I am a fucking ninja. Part of my friends are like, I am a ninja, and I'm gonna do ninja stuff with my ninja throwing star belt buckle. I did get pretty good at throwing them. I've never looked. I should look. I guarantee you, though, you can still find those belt buckles online. You know, but they were just a lot of fun. Like I said, yeah, you're right. You're right. Well, one thing I will say too, I say in some situations kids grow up quicker. Like my niece and nephew, I feel like, and this is nothing against their mom because she has a right to raise them the way she did, and in this particular area, because there's not a lot for kids to do, kids get involved in drugs around here, which is bad. It's gotten better over the years. There's a lot more stuff to do now, but this area was known for because it's all farmland. It's not city, and there's not a lot to do. But kids were there was a lot of drug problems. Not as bad as it used to be, but my niece and nephew, their mom was very much a helicopter mom, and I don't mean that in a bad way. But she every day of the week, their activities, whether it was going to play soccer, softball, uh, karate, whatever sports it was, they were always in something. So that way they didn't have free time. My biggest problem is I don't think they're grown up enough to go out on their own. I think when they get out in the real world, they're going to have a lot of surprises that come to them. Neither one of them are street smart. And that's really important, I think, especially like me growing up in the city. My head is always on a swivel. And I will give you a good example. Jen, my wife, I love her to death, but she's not very street smart. And what I mean by that is we went to Cape Cod. And if you've never been to Cape Cod, but Cape Cod is a beautiful city with a beautiful city with a lot of money. There's a lot of homeless people, and you find them on some of the main streets. So we're on vacation there, and my wife is walking around, and I'm constantly looking around. I'm like, and I'm telling her, look out for those people on the right, look out for the people over there, because she's just seeing everything, but not seeing the little details of stuff I notice from growing up in the city, seeing a lot of homeless people who are dangerous or who are going to come in and not necessarily dangerous, they're going to try and grift, you know, that sort of things. My wife doesn't notice that stuff. So when we were away in Cape Cod, I was trying to explain to her, I was like, this is not the nice area that you think it is. And she was like, what do you mean? I was like, look at all these people. She's like, what about them? I was like, they're all homeless. I was like, I wouldn't trust them within 5 feet of them. And she just didn't see it or realize it until I started explaining. And she started looking around. She's like, oh my God, you're right. But that's just that's the way I am. I look around and I notice everything, you know. But it's one of those things. I also notice details like when I would come into work, like after a day off, if somebody moved something in the office, I would notice it immediately because I'm a very detail oriented person, you know. Yeah, 100%, Robert. Absolutely. Sometimes she could be, James, 100%. No, it's just because she was raised differently. She was raised in a much more rural area where they didn't have the crime like we had in the city, you know, so they didn't have to look out for it. But I feel like kids like my niece and nephew, I really think they need to get out, go on trips on their own. They've never been allowed to go on trips on their own. Even now, right? Even now, they whatchamacallit, they both have their licenses. She won't let them drive certain places by themselves. Um, and I'm like, if they're gonna drive and have licenses, they need to, in my opinion. And again, they're her kids, so I can't say anything, you know. But my opinion is, if they're gonna drive, let them drive. The only way you get experience is by doing. You know, watching some sitting in the passenger seat watching someone drive isn't going to teach you how to drive. You know, but again, not my kids, and they're great kids. You know, and she's my sister-in-law. She's awesome. So I can't say that she's the one. She's the reason why she's still battling her cancer, and that's why I still wear my breast cancer awareness um, band, and why I still have the breast cancer awareness stuff on my videos. You know, but yeah, you got to keep your head up. You know, so Amy, I know it's backwards because I'm using my cell phone camera, but see the hat? That's not a Wu Tang symbol. I mean, it is a Wu Tang symbol, but it doesn't say Wu Tang in the middle. It actually says Full Tang, which I really love. I got that patch from Melissa Backwoods, so that was kind of cool. So I just love the fact Full Tang. You know, nice people are gonna know what it means. Other people are gonna be like, "What the hell does that mean?" You know, but we still have a lot of people here. We're getting close to midnight, and still have 25 people hanging out, which I love. We've got 40 likes, 41 likes. That's awesome. Everybody having fun? I hope everybody's having fun. 100% situational awareness. Great, great way to put it. 100%. Oh, exactly, James. When my wife thinks that's like the craziest thing in the world. Like when I was like 16 years old, Me, my best friend, these two girls we used to hang out with, we would get on bicycles. And mind you, we lived in Brooklyn, New York, and we would ride. And back then I was in shape and could ride this long, but we would ride like 2, 3 hours going one direction, and we would round up halfway across the city. Halfway across Brooklyn. We would start down trying to think of, like, if you're not from the area, you won't know, but we would wind up in, say, Borough Park, and then we would wind up going all the way down to Bensonhurst. So we would actually ride down from Borough Park to all the different neighborhoods to get to Shore Road. And Shore Road had the bike path that went from Bay Ridge and went miles and miles all the way down to Caesar's Bay Bazaar, which was in Bensonhurst. Caesar's Bay Bazaar was a big giant flea market. It was it wasn't a Sears, but it was a Corvettes. On the East Coast, we had a chain of stores called Corvettes, um, which was actually started by a bunch of Korean vets, Korean war vets, and that's how they came up with Corvettes. And we would go there after Corvettes went out of business, it became Caesar's Bay Bazaar. And they had these flea markets there, and there were all these vendors, and it was really kind of cool. Great place to go shopping, especially for sneakers and whatnot. Uh-oh. I might have to wrap this up. I'm getting a notification that my earbuds power is getting low. We'll go as long as I can. And we would be out there, like you said, hours at a time. Our parents had no idea where we were. We didn't have cell phones. They would just be like, all right, go out, have fun. Be back by, whatever time. And we'd always be back, you know. It was one of those. But that's the way it was in the city. We'd go out, hang out, you know, and my wife, when I tell her about that, she's like, "No, we were never allowed to do that kind of stuff." And I'm thinking, well, that's the same thing, you know. Have a good night, Blue. Love you, buddy. Glad you're here. Say hello to Trish. Let her know she's loved too. But with that saying, we would do it. My wife's always like, no, she's like, we were never allowed to do that. And I was just like, I think it's just because of where we grew up in different places. You have different, same thing. Like we was in high school, we didn't get, we didn't go to school on a yellow school bus. We took the city bus or the subway. We would get bus passes or train passes, and you get on the subway, go to school, or get on the bus depending on where you live. Like in my case, I originally started at one school, and I would have to take two buses. I would have to take one bus from my neighborhood into another neighborhood, then transfer to get to school. It would take me about, I would leave school at like 2:30 and wouldn't get home till like 4 o'clock. Because no, maybe like an hour, yeah, maybe hour to an hour and a half, depending on how the buses were running. If you caught the buses, but we did that. We didn't get driven to school. We didn't take the school bus, the school bus, so to speak. I never rode in a school bus ever, as far as grammar school and high school. Never. Only on school trips they would bring school buses, but we took city transportation. So I think that's the other thing too, being young and being on, in high school, being whatever age you start, 14 years old, taking a bus to school, a city bus or the train, you know. So, oh yeah, yeah. Now, do you remember? Okay, again, this is not trying to be offensive to anyone Polish, but do you remember the old Polish joke? There was an old Polish joke back in the day that said, the 10 o'clock announcement in Poland. Well, the 10 o'clock announcement in Poland was, it's 10 o'clock. Do you know what time it is? Back in the day when Polish jokes were politically correct. Oh boy. But you know what? It's a different time. I don't think it's a lot of people who are older will tell you, oh, things are terrible today. I don't think they are. I think we just see more of it because we have a 24-hour news cycle and we've got the internet and nothing is hidden and everybody just voices their opinion, you know? No, they don't. Kids don't gather and hang out like that. No. The only time you see kids gathering is during organized activities, whether it's softball, baseball, hockey, soccer, whatever they're playing. It's usually organized, and we never had a play date. How many times have you heard the word play date? Oh, my kids are going on a play date today. Play date? No, we just went outside, met friends. That was our play date. Go outside, play. All right. Hey, you're new to the neighborhood. What's your name? Bob? All right. Hey, Bob, come hang out. My name's Lance. Oh, Giacomo. This is Bob. I grew up with a lot of Italian kids, so names like Pasquale, Giacomo, and Antonio were pretty common. Replacement coils. But wait, there's more. Oh, no, that's tomorrow, and that'll be with a kazoo. A lot of people online. Oh yeah, yeah. No, and that is a large part of it. You know, actually, Bill York, who was here before, and myself, we were big World of Warcraft game players. So I can't say anything about that. You know, I've done my share of that too, but not when I was younger. We did that as adults. You know, but yeah, it's just weird. It's a different world, but I don't think it's any worse. It's just different. And you know what's going to happen? And the reason why I say that because we say no shade at all. I love Rob. I tease all the time because I have a kazoo over there, and I always joke that I'm gonna play the kazoo and punish people. But I don't mean that. I like Rob a lot. Rob's a good guy, genuinely good guy. You know, I was actually gonna come on and play the harmonica today and be like, but Jen went to bed, and I'm afraid I'm gonna wake her up. But I was gonna play the harmonica. So anybody want a harmonica? Salute, and do the whole thing because I can actually play harmonica. But that's a whole different story. But if you think about it, I remember my grandparents saying that my parents were soft and that they don't know what it was like to be them. And I remember my parents saying, "You got it made. You don't know what it was like to grow up in the 50s and 60s." And now we're saying the same thing about these kids. It's all generational. You know, our grandparents didn't get our parents didn't get us. You know, um, we grew up in different times. And we were all raised differently. The way my grandfather raised his kids isn't exactly the same as the way my dad raised me, or the way I would raise a kid if I had a kid. You know, I always look at things and said, well, if I had a kid, I would do it way different than what my dad did. But the reality is, I didn't come out all that bad. I've worked my whole life. I've never been in trouble. You know, I have manners. I'm pretty courteous to people. You know, it's Rob's thing. It's Rob's thing. We all have our thing. I mean, hell, I play with a lightsaber. I play with a lightsaber and a Star Trek phaser. But we all have our thing. I just the only thing that gets me about Rob, and again, this is not a knock on Rob, so don't tell Rob I said things. This is not. I think in a way he has some type of um, like an obsessive compulsive thing because if you give a super chat, he has to stop, play the kazoo, and he has to go back. Like if he's reading the rules to the giveaway and you give a super chat, he'll stop. He won't just continue reading the rules from where he left off. He'll go all the way back to the beginning, almost like it's an obsessive compulsive thing. I don't know if it is or not. I also know that he's a very technically minded person. So for him, he may have to run through it to make sure he didn't miss anything. I know he works in computer tech, and in a lot of cases, you have to do that. So it's just the way he may be wired. There's nothing wrong with that. You know, it's just what he does. There's nothing, again, nothing wrong with it. Rob's a genuinely good guy. But, let's see. But look at us now. Most of us have never met each other face to face and really about the same thing. You can have she, oh, 100%. 100%, Roger. You know, I'll be honest with you, because of moving multiple times and going to different schools, I started out as a kindergartner. Well, let's put it this way. I'll go through this. You grow up and you've got your kids that you grew up in the neighborhood with before you went to school. So that's one set of friends, right? You start school, and in my case, I went my my main school didn't offer kindergarten. They offered 1 through 8. Okay, because I went to private school, so I had to go to public school for kindergarten. We didn't have preschool back in the day, so I went to one school for kindergarten. Then from there, I did 8 years in a grammar school. So now that's one set of friends, two set of friends, three sets of friends. Okay. Now I go to high school. I went to one high school for 2 years. That's now a fourth set of friends. Okay. I switched high school because of athletics after year 2, after my sophomore year. So I went to another school now. So now that's five sets of friends. Now I go to two different colleges. So we're five sets of friends, two more colleges. Now up to seven sets of friends. Now I have my job where I gain another set of friends. Now I've got 8 sets of friends. Okay. Now I get a new job. I've got 9 sets of friends. I basically had 4 jobs since. So up to 13 sets of friends. Then I've had people that I've just met organically, bumping into someone here or hanging out at the same place. Next thing you've got this huge, huge circle of friends. Okay. Lots and lots of friends. And some of them, yes, are more acquaintances than friends, but you know them, you've hung out with them, you've talked to them, you worked with them, you went to school with them. Then you have the people that you dated, and maybe you didn't work out with them, but you made friends through them. So you have another sets of friends. It just compounds. What I have found was Facebook was a way to keep me involved with all those friends. You know, I like I can't tell you how many friends I have on Facebook. Um, and then you made Facebook friends, much like I've made friends with most of you communicating with most of us here talk outside of just here. We've talked on, um, we've talked on Instagram. A lot of us are friends on Facebook now. We talk behind the scenes too. So how many friends have we made that way? Well, the only if it wasn't for social media, I wouldn't know what's going on with like 90% of those people because I don't see them day to day. Some people I don't see in years, and we only talk through Facebook now. But they're no less my friends than the friends I hang out with. You know, best friends I had while growing up, I may not hang out with anymore because we have miles and miles between us. We live in different places. We have different paths of life. But my friend Randy, he was the first friend I had, like the first best friend I had when we were 5 years old. We're both the same age. We're both 56, and we're still like that. We went a period of like 20 years without seeing each other. And then we found each other on Facebook. And it was like we never missed a beat, you know? So social media is good for a lot of things. What I've done though, because I don't listen, I don't share my politics. I don't push my politics onto anybody. I don't like when people push their politics onto me. Same thing when it comes to religion. I don't post anything religious. I don't post anything um, political. And what I do is I never unfriend people, but there are some people I know who all they want to do is just drop their political ideology on Facebook. So you know what I do? I just choose not to see their posts, but I'll still talk to them like on Facebook Messenger and stuff, and I just won't get into the politics behind it. I don't want to talk politics. I think politics is what really separates everybody nowadays. You know, and the reality is, if you take, and again, I'm not going too politically deep, but I think if you took a Republican, a Democrat, conservative, whatever you want to call them, whatever you want to call anybody, and you say, list me the things out of life that you want. About 80% of everybody wants the same thing. We want to be safe. We want to make enough money to feed our families. We want to live comfortably. We want to have our nice home. We want to have a car. We want to have pets. We want 80% of the same things. And there's like 20% of things that people argue over. And I think there is one thing now that's different than when, say, like the 80s. In the 80s, because we didn't have the internet, yes, you had your political parties, but they would sit down, they would compromise and work together. Now, no one's allowed to work with the other side. Not at all. Not at all. You can't. You're not, because if you agree with the person on that political party, oh my God, you're betraying your party. God forbid you should think for yourself. You know, that's just my opinion. You know, I I I'm one of those people. I will say this when it comes. I don't vote along party lines. I vote for whoever I think can do the best job and who will benefit the people the most. You know, so I also don't. You look at memes and half, if not like 90% of the information that you see in a meme. Oh, Joe Blow said this, and it cost his people this, and then you actually go do the research, and none of it's true. And when I say do research, I don't mean just, hey, I'm going to read an article here, or I'm going to go to, you know, you don't have, I'm going to go to um, websites or newspapers that support my party, and I'm only going to listen to them because, and I think whether you like the guy or not, Joe Rogan said this a long time ago. He said we've gotten to a point where you don't listen to anybody else. What you do is you find somebody who has your ideology, and that's who you listen to. But I will say one thing: I've never learned anything from somebody who just repeats back my opinion. I always want to hear what the other side has to say because you know what? Sometimes they're right, and my opinion may not be. And sometimes when I think about what people are saying on the other side, they're not always wrong. So that's just the way I feel. YouTube Music Portal, hello there, welcome in. So that's just the way I feel. Again, I don't want to go off on politics again or religion. I'm like, and I'm one of those people. Do what makes you feel happy. As long as you don't impose on other people. You know, if you don't like a certain group of people, that's your prerogative. But you don't need to make those people feel uncomfortable. You know, just be nice to everybody. You know, do something kind for somebody. It's what we live by in this community. You know, guitars and gear live. We still have to work on that, Neil. Yes, that's what I'm going to be working on that later, James. But yeah, that's actually a really good idea, James. One thing, I, one thing I'm looking into, and this is going to sound weird. I've always wanted to be a park ranger from when I was a kid. You guys know I love Smokey the Bear. I am going to be. I actually just downloaded all the information to start. So I'm going to be looking for jobs. I think I want to be a park ranger when I grow up. You know, but I don't know. I can't make up my mind what I want to be when I grow up. But I think a park ranger, with my loving the outdoors, I think it's something that I could really get into. Plus, I think I look really kick ass with that park ranger hat and that uniform. Love me a park ranger hat. The only hat I like better than that is a Pope's hat. So I've tried to become Pope before, and I never get the white smoke. It's always black smoke. I never get elected Pope. But Father Guido Sarducci, for those who are old enough to remember Father Guido Sarducci, he had a bit on Saturday Night Live where he was like, "You too could be Pope. Send 9.95, and I will send you a Pope hat. You could be Pope." So, yep, that's what I said. When I grew up, I want to be a fire truck. You remember that, huh? That's pretty awesome. That's awesome, Cicero. But yes, Father Guido Sarducci, for those who are old enough to remember Saturday Night Live in the late 70s and early 80s, Father Guido Sarducci used to be on there all the time. and he had that bit, and I just always laughed my ass off. You too, could it be Pope? So actually, I did a before we had all the apps where you could just edit stuff in Photoshop. Me and Jen were on vacation, and I was standing in front of this really cool Gothic-looking church, and I'm sitting there in my tough pose, arms crossed, and then I went back and photoshopped me wearing a Pope's hat into every picture because I just think a Pope's hat's awesome. What I think is I should have a Pope's hat and a big foam finger that says Adventure 50. You know, instead of a cross on the Pope's hat, I could just have the Adventure 50 logo. You know, sort of like I did with the Burger King crown. I don't know if anybody remembers this, but I've got the Burger King Adventure 50 crown. So there you go. Look, my crown, the Adventure 50 crown. So broke down Rob. Oh, I'd love to. Now, mind you, I don't want to talk about Rob in a bad way. So if there's anything that's bad, no, I don't want to. You know, but I'm always interested in human behavior. You know, at one point I took some psych classes, and I really enjoyed psychology. Almost wish I had stuck with it. But okay, cool, yeah. That then definitely into that. You know, 11:56. We're almost at 2 hours. I gotta tell you, like you guys know, I tell you this all the time. I get nervous before coming on every week, and I shouldn't. I'm just hanging out with my friends, you know. But I always get that. This is the same thing for years as a musician. Before going on stage, I would always get um, anxiety, not stage fright, but I would always get a little anxiety. I was having that again tonight before coming on, and then I was like, that's why I waited so long to put up um, the live show thumbnail and whatnot. Also, too, I meant to do it yesterday. I forgot, but you know, but yeah, and yes, I am sitting here with my Burger King Adventure 50 crown. I don't care who sees it. You know, I think I told you guys before. When I was a kid, I was ridiculously shy. I would always hide behind my mom or my dad. It wasn't until I started working in retail as a teenager that got me over that because I was forced to talk to people. You know, you can't not talk to people when you work in retail and they come up to you and ask you for help and what do you do? And over time, I just broke out of that. And then, of course, playing guitar on stage and whatnot, I broke out of that. But I still get anxiety, even sometimes, like when I have to, um, like when I have meetings and I have to meet people and whatnot, I get anxiety. You know, nothing wrong with that. I think it's human nature. I think, you know, there's always a bit of stage fright, even though I don't really consider it stage fright. 'Cause I'm not afraid of going out there and making a fool of myself in front of people. I've never been that way because I'm naturally, one of the things I don't do is on here, maybe I should, is I am a joke teller. I constantly tell jokes and I love being the center of attention. You know, that's part of growing up as an only child, though. An only child and only grandchild. You always had the attention on you. So I never minded that so much, you know. Yeah, absolutely, Dale. 100%. So, we didn't talk a shit ton of knives, but oh, I got a video that's going to be coming out where I compare the Milwaukee Fastback to the new Klein Tools electrician's utility knife, and I love the Fastback. Um, Absolutely love this thing. Just comes in really handy. But they've got a contender. For the longest time, I thought this was the best one out there for what it is. With the driver, with the bit driver. Um, but they have competition now in the new one from Klein Tools. So I'm gonna have that video coming out. Normally wrong about things, so I gotta listen. I don't like to be wrong about things, and it burned my ass today. Um, but I'm always willing to admit when I was wrong. I made a mistake in the video I posted this week about my Swiss Army knife. I pointed out that it was the wrong. I thought it was the Swiss officer's knife, and it turned out not to be. It's actually the hiker. And um, one of the viewers left a comment and said, "You realize that knife is the hiker?" He said it has a saw, and then I was like, you know what? Maybe I'm wrong. Edgarito, thank you so much. I appreciate you sending the star over. I appreciate you being here. So I went in and I was like, you know what? I've had this knife for about a year now. I was like, maybe I did get it confused because there's so many models of Swiss Army knife. I was like, let me check. So I went into my order and I researched the order. I was like, oh shit, I am totally wrong. It's absolutely the hiker. So I thanked the guy because I don't mind. Like if I'm wrong, point it out to me. I have no problem with that. I don't know everything. I never will. Don't claim to know everything. I do claim that my phone knows everything though. So that even if I don't know it, I can always look it up on my phone. The collective wisdom of the entire world on your phone. Pretty amazing. On that note, it is after midnight, and we've been on for 2 hours, just about. I think I started like a three minutes late, so we'll hang out another couple minutes. But yeah. Well, my dad had a great saying, Cicero. My dad used to say all the time, if you can't fill them with facts, dazzle them with bullshit. Words to live by. You know. Yes, it is time to spin the Olight wheel. I think we only have what, 2 more days of that, something like that. So I could get my 30 points. Although I did win, not this time around. I won a couple of times. I won going back a couple of years ago. This was one of the Olights that I won from spinning the wheel. This is the whatever it is, the I3T2. I won this one from spinning the wheel, and then um, for the July 4th one, I won not a challenge coin, but one of the magnetic um, self stickies, the little Olight globe. So I won that, and that was kind of cool. Along to go along with the free flashlight that you wind up paying $5 in shipping for. I am so close. I am this close to diamond status on Olight. Like I need to order like one more thing. Yep, yep. Yeah, they are doing that. Yep. Now you know what's really funny? I told you guys I was cleaning out the room. And this desk, I hadn't opened up the drawer on this desk in years. When I opened it up, I found a box of like I think it's 20 rechargeable Energizer AA batteries and like 10 AAA rechargeable batteries and the charger. So that's kind of cool. I also have the OI rechargeable batteries that they sent me, like the 8 pack they sent me like about a year ago. Um, I will say this: OI, I think I mentioned this the other day. OI finally reached out for me to test something and do a video on. It's the first time they've ever reached out to me, and it's on the new O station that's coming out. They have another new O station that's coming out. So you'll get a video on that. I was actually kind of shocked that Olight reached out. So, you know, as we're getting closer here to 4,000 subs, more channels, not more channels, more companies are starting to reach out a little bit. I've got a bunch of videos coming out this week and next week of stuff that was sent to me. So there's that, you know, but I don't know. I'm having fun. I'm not going to sign off yet. I'm just going to hang out. Anyone wants to hang out, we'll hang out for a little while longer because I got the warning that the power's going low, but they're not going off. I think, I think, James, that this is going to be a little bit smaller and more compact and less feature-packed unit. I could be wrong. It's my belief. They haven't said it. They just basically sent me a model number, and I can't find anything yet on it. So I'm waiting for it to show up. But if it is if it is like one of the full featured ones, I'm happy they send me anything. To be honest, I'm always so shocked when companies send me stuff when they reach out. You know, which I have a bunch of follow up emails to write tomorrow. I got a bunch of companies who reached out and then I responded, but I haven't heard back from them, so I got to follow up with those. I can see how if you're one of the full time YouTubers, like a Metal Complex or um, G-Ball, you're they must constantly be getting they must constantly be getting emails to them. Hey, we want to send you this, we want to send you that, and you want to respond. And you can spend literally hours writing emails and responding, and then recording videos. You know, I don't know. I haven't seen it. Like I said, they sent a it was a little thumbnail picture. I couldn't click on it to make it bigger in the email. It didn't have a whole lot of details. It just said there's a new model coming out, and I don't even think it gave. I don't even think it actually gave a model number. So it might be. I'm hoping it does. You know, I have so many Olights that use the magnetic charging base. You know, and I actually like that system a lot. I like it a real lot. Problem is, like they sold for a while. They were selling that power strip that had like three or four of the little magnetic places. Problem is, they were too close together, and their bigger lights don't fit. Oh, 100%. Yeah, definitely. But you know what's really weird? I don't understand the rhyme or reason behind the way some of these companies work. Um, Blessed EDC, hello there. And what I mean by that is, I see channels that are really small who get stuff sent to them, and I see channels that are really big. I get when the big channels get stuff because they have a lot of subs, so it pushes it out to a lot of people. And I scratch my head sometimes. And again, it's not a jealousy thing, but I just wonder. I'm like, I don't understand how their algorithm works or how their choices work. Because their channels, who I know, get less views than mine and have less subscribers, but yet they're getting stuff sent that some companies have told me no. So I don't know. I don't know how it works. I really don't. And I'm just grateful for any company that wants to work with me. You know, there's only one company so far I said no to because I didn't think the product was right for you guys. Yes, as a person who wears watches that um, I use a UV light. I have one next to my bed, and right before I go to bed, I hit whatever watch I'm wearing with the UV light to make the lume really pop and last that much longer. You know, but yeah, but you're right. People like I'm not gonna lie. I send emails out to companies all the time, especially new companies. I'm like, hey, I basically tell them I have a channel. This is how many views I have, lifetime. This is how many subscribers we have. This is the amount of videos. These are the companies I've already worked with. Some companies respond right away and they're like, yeah, you know that sounds good. Then I have other companies they don't respond at all. And then I've had companies that just basically outright say, no, we have a media plan and certain people we're working with. You know, I had one company who said, listen, we don't have anything new coming out right now. We'll put you on a list. I waited a year and they finally reached out and said, hey, we've got this product. We want you to try it out. And I was like, absolutely, absolutely. In fact, that company was the fine makers at Tactus. So this is the Tactus Frontier. When this knife had come out, I contacted them about uh, being part, wanting to do a video for them. Not a lot of people who had done videos, and they're like, no, um, they're like, right now we don't have anything new. Well, Tactus only releases one new knife a year. So when they released the Strike this year, they contacted me and they said, yep, now it's time. And they sent me the Strike, you know. So that's the other thing too. Sometimes you have to be patient, you know. And what some companies do is they'll work with you, and then next month they'll work with different channels because they don't want to work with the same people all the time. So they have a rotation. Like I've had that happen where a company I worked with, and then I saw they had a new product. I said, hey, we just collaborated with you. Want to do it? And they're like, no, no. They're like, we've got you set for whatchamacallit, set for a video, in 2 months from now. We're rotating who we use. And I was like, oh, okay. I thought that was a way of blowing them off. And then sure enough, 2 months later, they contacted, all right, now we're ready. HX Outdoors. HX Outdoors I've worked with now on a few different projects, but they like to make you wait 6 months between when they send you product, you know. And again, I know there are probably different rules for different channels too, because if you have a million subscribers, they're just going to send you anything you want. But when you're a smaller channel, that's the way it works. And quite frankly, that makes sense to me. Spread it out, spread the love between. There is a gnat. How did a gnat get in here? But there is I like that because I like some of the companies that are willing to work with smaller creators because they would rather work with a bunch of small creators than one big creator or two big creators. You know, there's some companies who have taken that route too, and it's been very successful for them, and it's helped little guys like my channel. You know, but like I said, any company that wants to send me stuff, I'm always willing to listen. You know, one company that I just turned down, it was a company that does smart health monitoring, and I'm like, I don't even know how I would do a video on that. Like it doesn't fit in with anything on the channel. It's not EDC related. It's not outdoor gear related. Um, I was like, how am I going to do a health monitor? You know, but yeah, people that you know what? I have a tendency to agree. And you know what? Here's the thing. And Rich from Metal Complex has said this. He gets so much stuff. Like half of what he gets never even winds up on his channel because he just doesn't think it's worth the time because he thinks it's stuff that nobody's going to be interested in or the companies he doesn't know and they randomly send him stuff and I'm always to myself like, hey Rich, send that stuff our way. You have stuff that because he doesn't even sell most of his stuff. Like I don't know what he does, but yeah, you know, I'm always like, and I'm like, wow, that must be really cool to get so much stuff that you could be picky and choosy about what you're showing. You know, the one thing I should say that I turned that company down without. There was one company who wanted to send me a knife, and I outright told them no because they had listed they wanted to set a set of terms that I would have to follow in order to review their product. I would have to have the video out in X amount of days, and I would need to say this and say that, and I'm like, no, you're not telling me what to say. I'll gladly test your product, give people an overview of it, and but don't tell me what you want me to say because that's just not going to happen. If there are bullet points where you say, "Hey, I think this is a feature that they may find interesting," I'll take that under advisement because that makes sense. But don't tell me we want you. Basically, what they were doing was giving me a script that they wanted me to read, and I'm like, "Nope, not gonna happen." You know, if you notice, I don't really kill knives. The knives I review are the ones, and I have some knives that I've been sent that I don't review because I don't think that. Oh yes, that wasteland camel rock hopper that I showed Aries. Yep. I talked to Texas Tinker about not to change those, but I talked since you brought it up. I talked to him about just selling the scales without the knife. I was like, listen, I already have the knife. I just want the scales. He said he won't make the scales separately until he sells out of the knives he has. He wants to sell the full knives first. I get it, you know. At the same time, man, I just wish I had those scales. Those scales are fire, you know. He seems like a pretty cool guy. He makes a lot of nice stuff. Um, and geez, if you're ever in his whatnots, he gives out a knife, a free knife, like every 10 minutes. I don't know what knife it is or anything like that. I had never won one from him, but he's always giving away free knives. So I'm always about, hey, you want to send me a free knife? Send me a free knife. you know. But getting back to like I was saying, I'm not going to take a product if they want to give me a script that I have to read. That's insane. You know. But with my reviews, like I basically the way I look at it is I don't necessarily consider myself a critic or a hard reviewer. I am more of a person that you send me the knife. If I like it, I'm going to present it to the audience and I'm going to tell you what I like about it. If there's something that I think needs to be changed, I'll say that. But I'm never going to 100% bash a knife because again, I don't, that's not my style. I'm not, and it's not because I don't want to be honest. It's because I think if there's a knife that I don't like and that I'm not going to um, carry myself, I don't even want to bring attention to it. No, I'm not going to do it. I'd rather show you knives that I think are worth carrying. You know, like I said, I won't take a script. That one company really pissed me off to the point where I didn't even respond to them. Like I got really mad, and I probably should have told them, listen, no, I'll do this, but I'll do it only on my terms. I should have done that, but I just said, you know what? If they want that, if they want that, that means they're not honest. They're not necessarily honest about their product. Yeah, it's just one of the things. It's I don't want to sit here and lie to people. You know, 12:17. I think this might be the longest we've done in a long time now. You know, but I'm enjoying just hanging out. We still have 24 people in here, so that means 24 of you maniacs just want to hang out with me on a Sunday night slash now Monday morning. But no, I'm good. I don't have to pee, so we're good. We are good. But I will have to get off here soon because I have to get see with Jen working right now, me not. I'm being the good husband and I'm preparing her stuff at night. So when she leaves in the morning, her breakfast is all done. She's ready to go. Her coffee's made. So I'll start prepping that. What I'll do is I'll make her breakfast tonight. And then that way in the morning, she just has to pop it in the microwave for like 30 seconds to heat it up and she can take it to go. So on the edge, EDC channel member, welcome in. So like right now, I'll go make her um, a homemade egg McMuffin. I'll toast the muffin, butter it, throw, cook up an egg, cook up some bacon for it, you know, and ready to go. I'll have that wrapped up. In the morning, she can pop in the microwave. I will make her iced coffee tonight for the whole Stanley mug right in the refrigerator, keep it cold. Of course, it'll keep cold anyway, but that way in the morning she can just grab and go. You know, you know what? People that I will say one thing. Jen and I were married in October. It'll be 20 years. We've been together 21, and we really work together well. Um, what she'll do, like when before I got laid off, I'm between my diabetes medicine, my high blood pressure, all the medicine. I would get breakfast ready the night before, and then what she would do is when she would wake up in the morning, she would run my coffee, and then she would put together all my medicine. So I just had to go take my medicine, and go to work, type of thing, you know. Yeah, if only that was the case, Robert. You know, but no, we help each other. We help each other with the house. Like that's the one thing. Like I love my dad, but my dad growing up never helped my mom around the house, and I watched my mom kill herself. Not literally, but like first of all, my mom had anxiety around a lot of people, so she didn't like to go to big supermarkets. She would prefer every day after work to go to the local store, pick up the food that she needed to cook for that night. Almost a European mindset, even though she wasn't European, but because that's how they do it in Europe. But she would go shopping, pick up her groceries every day. She would come home, she would make dinner, right? But my mom was a cleaning fanatic. So she would sweep and mop the kitchen and every day. She would then vacuum every other day, you know. But my dad never helped her with that stuff. Never. My mom would do the laundry. She would clean the bathrooms, wash the dishes. Growing up, we didn't have a dishwasher, you know. It wasn't until later on that my mom, when I was probably, I don't know, 10 years old or so, said to my dad, from now on, you're doing the laundry. And we would wind up going, even though we had a very small washing machine in our house. It was one of the portable ones that hook up to the sink because we lived in an apartment. We weren't supposed to have a washing machine. So we wound up taking the laundry, me and my dad, every Saturday afternoon. He'd allow me in the morning to go out play with my friends and whatnot, but in the afternoon I had to be back, and me and him would go do the laundry every weekend. That was the extent of what my dad did. Now, my dad, growing up, I was lucky. My dad made a good living, so we always had vacations, and that sort of thing. And but my dad was not the type. He would go to work. He worked as an electrician, so yes, I understood. He worked in construction. He was on his feet all day. But later, well, how the heck are you, my friend? I'm glad you're here. I hope everything's going well with the new job, the new job. You know. Um, well, that's the thing. We lived in an apartment building. There was no outside stuff for us to do. So no, my dad would come home from work every day. He would literally sit on the couch. My dad was an avid reader, and this was my dad. He'd be laying down on the couch. He'd be laying down, and he'd have a book. And he'd just be like this, reading, and he'd read every day, or he would read the newspaper. My dad would pick up three newspapers. He would read the newspapers cover to cover every day. He always knew what was going on, type of thing. He was a great guy. And the other thing my dad did, which my dad growing up was an athletic director, so he coached baseball, basketball, hockey, girls softball. So he coached four different sports and he ran the athletic program. So the days he would come home were the days he didn't have to be at the gym, opening the gym to allow the teams to come in, or coaching baseball or that kind of stuff. So it wasn't like he wasn't doing anything, but he wasn't doing the housework with my mom. But I decided a long time ago with Jen, when we first started going out, no, I'm going to contribute. I'm going to clean. I'm going to, do that sort of stuff. We try to split everything evenly. Um, I do a little bit more around the house than she does, but that's because she has a much longer commute than I do. Right now, I don't have a commute. Wait, I'm not sure if you're aware, but I no longer work at Michael's. Just, um, I know I haven't talked to you in a while, but I no longer work at Michael's. I got laid off in the middle of June. They laid a few of us off. So after 11 years, I was out of there. Yeah, but there was a difference though. Here's the thing: my mom worked a full-time job where, in when my grandparents were you know, uh, first married, the men worked and the women stood home. So from that perspective, I guess it kind of made sense. You know, you got it later. You know, but yeah, yeah. Oh, my mom was a super mom. You know, and what's funny is like when I had baseball or basketball or anything, she would always be there. You know, and then when I got old enough, when I turned 18, I started actually, yeah, when I turned 18, I started coaching boys baseball, girls softball, whatnot. So it's pretty cool, you know. Hey, my mom was the one who told my dad. My dad was okay if I stayed home every summer and didn't do anything. My mom was like, no. As soon as I turned 16, my mom was like, you're done with school for the summer, you're getting a job. You're not sitting home doing nothing. She wanted me to learn responsibility, and she made sure I got a job at age 16. I've worked ever since. You know, the other thing too is when I wanted my first car, my mom was like, I am not buying you a car. She's like, make you a deal. You save money, and if you want to buy a car and you need a little bit more money added to it, we'll help you with it. So I never was given a car. I had friends who were given cars when they turned 18, not me. I had to work, you know. I had to work to earn money to get my first car. And then what really my grandfather passed away, and when he passed away, he left all the children money and he left all the grandkids money. And I then had the money for my first car. So, and the first car I bought, Pontiac Trans Am. So a 1979 Pontiac Trans Am. But yeah, I had to earn it, you know. Yeah. Oh, cool. I wish we both had those cars. You know how much they're worth now? Jeez Louise. 78 Malibu, nice. Nice. Dodge Dart Swigger. Love those cars. Omega Stacking. Hello there. 77 Firebird. Nice. So, Roger, if you had the 77 Firebird, if I'm not mistaken, right? Depending on which model you had, you either had the 305 or the 350, correct? Just curious, because in the Trans Am I had a 440 beast of a motor. That thing had so much torque in it. When you would start it, the whole engine block would go boom. They actually had cables that held the motor in place, so that way when you start, it didn't rip out. Yep, it was a 440, 6.6 liter, 440. Yeah, but here's the thing: because it was a 79, with the emissions system, it really slowed that car down. Where like the cars, like the Firebirds, in the early 70s when the emission systems weren't like they were was the smaller 305. Hey, that 305 still moved that car pretty quick. Because I had a friend who had the Firebird, the 305, and that car still moved. You know, because of the engine, it was a lot lighter than the 440. You know. But yeah, pretty cool. You had a 67 Cougar. Oh, those are beautiful. Very cool. Dodge Charger RT. Very, oh, nice. Only one owner. Wow. When my mom was alive, the owner of the company she worked for, bought 2 Mustangs in, I'm not sure, in '68. Bought 2 of them, put them into storage, and they've never been run. They're still in storage. Oh, I don't know about this day because my mom passed away years ago. But to the point when I turned 21, he had offered to sell me one of those Mustangs. I was a 21-year-old kid and couldn't afford a classic Mustang. And then I was worried about it because it had sat for, you know, at that point 20-something years, and who knows what the everything that's rubber inside was probably dry rotted, needed to be taken apart, rebuilt, even though it had never run. Pretty amazing though. He showed them to me one time. Just, my mom worked in a factory where they made breadsticks. She worked for a company called Best Quality Breadsticks, which is still around today, but they moved now from, I don't even know where they're headquartered. They were in Brooklyn, but then they moved. But he had a large area in the back where the 2 cars were, and they were under covers. And he took them off, and they were both gorgeous. It was the same car, too, just different colors. The Superbird is one of my favorite cars. You got yourself an Austin Healey Sprite. Very cool. The Superbird, I'll tell you why I fell in love with it. I used to run slot cars, AFX cars, all the time. And I had so many of that Superbird in an AFX car that I absolutely loved. I had it in the yellow, I had it in the blue, and the orange, the 3 colors they made it in. And it's just such an awesome looking car. But yep, absolutely. If you need decals made or stickers, you know, decal stickers, contact On the Edge EDC. With that being said, though, it is 12:31, and I am going to sign off. So I've had a lot of fun with you folks tonight. This has been really good. This is very cathartic for me, you know, with everything I've been going through. So let's grab a knife and do our weekly knifely thing. So thank you. I appreciate that. All right, folks. Be safe. I will talk to you during the week. I'm going to do more live streams because now I'm home. You know, like I did the morning one the other day, and I did an afternoon one. So remember, folks, as I always say, until we meet again, keep your blade sharp. All right, everybody, have a great night. Be safe, and I will talk to you all very, very soon. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it.